Okay, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Canon Pro-1100 printer, and I'm going to step you through the manual print head alignment process and give you reasons why I think if you own this printer, why you need to do that. Don't rely on the auto alignment process. I don't think it's good enough, so let's get into it. Okay, so I've done a lot of printing with this printer, and the prints have been beautiful. And I've used a lot of different paper types and lots of different types of images in different sizes. And everything has looked fantastic, like stunningly good. And but recently I was testing some new papers and I was doing some black and white printing, and I ran into a problem. And the problem was banding. And banding is a problem that you don't want if you're printing your photographs on a high-end printer like this. And if you've done that, it's probably not that unfamiliar to you because this is something that comes up occasionally. So anyway, so here was the image that I was printing on this matte paper that I was testing. And it's just a black and white image. I was in the city. It's just an experimental image here. But one thing you'll see is up here in this corner, this was actually blue sky, even though it's black and white here. But this is a very flat blue sky. And if you look really closely, and I really hope that the camera can pick this up, if you look really closely, there are bands here in this part of the image. And the bands are black lines, and they're about once every 1/8 of an inch, and you can see them going across this direction. So yeah, that's the problem. And what I found was that this problem is related to the print head alignment on this printer. And so let me get into this process and show how doing a manual print head alignment can help alleviate this problem. So yeah, let's get into that. Okay, so here I am back at the home menu on the printer, as you can see. And so I'm going to go into maintenance here again, and I'm going to go to print head alignment right there. And as you see, you have two selections. You have either auto or manual, and auto is what's people normally do, but I highly recommend that you do this manual process. So I'm going to select that. And do we want to start the manual head alignment? Yes. Okay, so we're going to specify the paper. It is letter size. I already have a couple of sheets in there, and this is a Pro Luster. I will make a recommendation right here that you do not use plain paper. You need something that you can be really precise with, like a glossy or a luster. In this case, Pro Luster is what I'm going to register. Okay. Settings, load 2 sheets. I already did it. And they're loaded in the top feed. Okay. I'm going to say go. So off we go. I will come back once we're on our first sheet to take a look at. So let's go there. And there we go. All right, so here I'll show you, give you a quick look. I'm not sure how much you'll be able to see here, but it is basically giving a set of patterns from every ink cartridge. And so you can see there's basically 10. And let's see here, did the patterns print correctly? Yes. Okay, so what it's saying here is select the number of the pattern with the fewest streaks or stripes. So yeah, we're going to step through this process, and so I'm going to say next. Okay, and so as you can see here, you see this D1. Here, I'll show you the sheet. There's D1 that you can see, and you can see you've got several selections that you can make, or one selection out of several. And this is going to be a very hard process, but these are very, very fine lines. I'll try to get close. I don't know if our camera is going to do anything here. Let me see if I can look at this a little bit differently. Yeah, and so we're going to want to select the pattern set that is the most linear. No squigglies in the lines, and you can see if some of these will be misaligned, and there's probably going to be one that's perfectly aligned. And so, okay, so I'm going to do this process. Okay, so there are going to be two tools here that are the main ones to use. You know, you have to get this really, really precise view of these lines, which you're not going to be able to see it. I'm going to try to show you this coming up, but the two main tools are going to be a really good magnifying glass, which ultimately is pretty good, but the best one is actually your phone's magnifying glass, where you can really, really get a very close view. The key to this is to be able to hold your phone pretty steady, though. It's not so easy, but you get used to it after a bit. But this one can be really good. So it's just your magnifying glass feature if you have an iPhone. I don't know what it is with Android, but I'm sure there's some kind of magnifying glass feature. But just go search for magnifying glass, and you'll see it. So that's what you're going to want to look. But all these different bands, they're very fine differences in each selection here, and you're going to want to select the one that is the straightest. And if everything is perfectly aligned, it's going to be number 10 for every ink head. Okay, that's what you want. If they're all 10, if they all come out to be number 10, then you're aligned perfectly. If any of them are off, you're not. And I'll just tell you, this is actually the third time I've done this. And so what I'm going to recommend to you is that, you know, you have to do this a few times. I don't think one time is enough. And, you know, the first time I went through this, sure enough, you know, there were a couple that were 10, but most of them were not. They were either 12 or 8 or 14. So it was not aligned. And I had done an auto alignment. So that it kind of proved to me that, that this auto head alignment is not quite good enough. So, okay. So I'm going to start looking at this right away and show you how to do this. But okay, so I'm looking at D01, and immediately I can see that 6 is not good, 8 is not good, 10 looks pretty good. Hold on. Does 10 look the best? That's the question. I can definitely see 14 is not good, and I think I see a little bit that 12 is not good, so it looks like 10 is the best. I'm going to zoom in further, try to steady myself. It can be very hard to tell, but it does look like 10 is the best. Let me look a little bit with this magnifying glass. Yeah, it looks like 10. Okay. All right then. Okay, so I'm back at the printer here. And so you can see the selections I have here. And so what I just looked at was D1. You can see at the top. And it defaults to 10. But you know, I can click that, and then I can make a selection and select the one that's the best. That's the way you do this process, is you select the one here on this menu. Okay, so for this one though, I see that it's 10. So I'm going to select 10, and so there it is. So now you step to the next one. You go back over to your sheet and you look at the next column. And repeat this process 10 times. And okay, so I will go through that process and I will report back. Okay, so here I'm going to attempt to show you in a little more detail what you see on these pages. And one thing I'm going to recommend that you do is when you label everything. And so I have this first sheet that I've done. And as I think I mentioned, this is my third time doing this. And so you see up there in the upper right, I labeled this C. So this is going to be set C for the third pass. And then this is the first pass in this set C, because it'll do 2 pages each time. Okay, and so now you can see these columns, and each column represents one of the ink sets, basically. Okay, and like I had mentioned, you know, you want to be, if you're perfectly aligned, you're actually at 10. So this is the next thing I'm going to recommend to you, and that is that you mark what you select. All right. So as you can see here in this first set, it was 10. 10 looked the best to me. And the second one, it's hard to see it with this light blue color, but you can see I selected 12, okay? The others you can see 10, 10, 10. Let me go down to the bottom set. Have a 10. I had another 12 there. Had another 10, another 10. Actually, this set D10 here was interesting. Actually, it wasn't 10. What I found was that both 10 and 12 look very close, and neither one looks perfect. And so I noticed that I've got some odd number settings in on my menu over there on the printer. And so I think this is a case where I can select 11 to tell it that I'm right in between. And then the last one, which was D11, you can see is a 10. So, okay, so it's pretty good. Certainly better than what I saw when I first did this, but I just wanted to show you in more detail what this really looks in. And let me get in close on one of these with a lot of contrast, these dark ones. So I'll show you 0, so you can really see how that one's, the alignment is bad there, right? So you can see as I step down toward 10, you can see they get much more even, and it gets very difficult to tell. Oops, sorry. You need something to steady your hand. But as you can see, when you get right down around 10, it's really hard. And then as you get toward 14 and 16 there, you can see they're not aligned. Okay. All right. So here's my last pass here of this third alignment that I've done. And so what I would hope here is I would have all 10s. And I'm close to that, but not quite 100%, and that's okay. But you can see in this top row, on the second pass, it starts calling these D13 through D23, just because it's the second pass, that's fine. But as you can see in these first 5, you can see I selected 10s for all of those. So good, very good. Down here in the next row, you can see I had, for D19, a 10. Now you can see D20, once again, I had one of these situations where both 10 and 12 looked really good, but very slightly off in opposite directions, actually. So here's another case where I'll go into my print setting on this and set it to an 11. And so D21 was 10, D22, which the previous time I had the where I set it to 11 is now a 10. And this time I looked really close at D23, and it is the same scenario here where 10 and 12 both look really close, but both slightly, just not quite perfect. So that'll be an 11 too. So, okay, so let me step over to the printer and do the settings, and I should be done here. Okay, so here I am back at the printer. And this time I have all 10s except for D20 and D23. So let me go to those. So all 10s and D20, as I was saying, actually should be an 11, all right? And then D23, that one needs to be an 11 also. Okay. So there I go. Okay, completed the following. It is done. Okay. All right, so the next step will be to do that print image. I'll print that image again and see if there's no banding. Hopefully that's the case. So let's get on to that. Okay, so after my third print head alignment, I have a good result, I believe. And just to review here, let me back out. So here were some of the original prints I was doing. The one in the middle on the matte paper was the original spot where I really could observe the bands. And let me zoom in here. I think you can see that there in the upper left. See those bands. It's pretty bad, actually. And then I also, at that time, had made another print on a 5x7 on a luster paper instead of matte. I was just checking to see if it was the same.
And basically it is. You can see on that one, it also had banding. Now, after I did the first printhead alignment, or the first couple, I saw a definite improvement. And in fact, here's a 4x6. I found that the print size really didn't matter. I could see it. Now, this was one after I'd done a couple of printhead alignments. And when I first printed it, I thought, okay, perfect. Yeah, it's completely gone. But when I looked really, 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 really close, and I don't think you're going to be able to see it here, there was one very faint band. And I just don't think you can see it here, but it was there. And so I knew that I needed one more. And okay, so today, after our alignment that we did here in the video, here's another 5x7 on a luster paper. And here, hopefully you can see, but I don't see any bands here. So it looks like this was successful. So yeah, interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, so I think that's what you have to do. I would say if you have this printer, you need to do the manual printhead alignment is what I would recommend. And don't be scared to do it more than once, because I think that's what's required. And and another thing too, I would say is if you get this happening, make good notes on your print so you'll have a good record. Like in this case, I had said, okay, this was the first print after alignment number 2. And I made a note about what I saw. So definitely do that. And that way you'll have a good record when you're going through this process if you run into this problem. So, okay, so wow, okay, that's successful, I think. And I hope this helps you if you're running into this problem. So, alrighty.
Okay, well, very interesting that I could only see that banding after I recorded that video clip there with my iPhone. With my naked eyes, I could not see the bands in this photograph. And I still can't. I look at it under good light, and I still don't see it really. And, I may be able to dream that it's there, just because I know it is there. But frankly, I just don't see it. And so pretty amazing. Just goes to show you it's a really subtle problem. And another thing I noticed too is, if this had been the first print I made of this image, I would have probably never gone down this road because I would never have known that those bands were there. The fact that I printed it at first on a matte paper was kind of the one that was really obvious, and kind of makes sense, because the matte paper is going to allow for sort of like ink pooling, if you could think of that, because no matter what the printer is doing these scan lines, back and forth across this paper. And no matter what, you have these lines where it's very close, like little bits of overlap, makes sense. And with a matte paper, you're going to have a little bit of pooling, right? Because it bleeds a little bit. Whereas a gloss or a luster like this print, you're not going to see that very much because it doesn't pool like that. So it's very interesting. I've learned a few things here, but I would still say though, I can't see the banding in this with my naked eye. So that's pretty interesting. So, all right.
All right. After a fourth time doing the manual printhead alignment, now I don't think I see bands. But boy, just goes to show you, you've got to really do a good job on this. And it's a very subtle little problem. So yeah. Okay, I think that looks pretty good.
Okay, so just a few final thoughts here. A couple things I didn't mention during the video. One was that you should always do a nozzle check before you go down this road of printhead alignment. Just make sure that you've got nothing clogged. Easy to do. That's just a little test that you can do on your maintenance menu. But yeah, be sure and do that. Next one there, as I said in the video, don't hesitate to do more than one alignment. And don't, I think definitely doing the manual printhead alignment is a pretty good thing to do. Don't rely on auto. So, but, in the video, I did 4 alignments to get to the point where I think I've alleviated this problem. So you may have to do that more than once. It's a pretty tedious process. So be patient. Next one there, don't use plain paper, as I said, when you're printing out your patterns, because you're looking for this linearity.
And I think with plain paper, you get a little bit of bleed, and it's not going to be as precise, and so definitely use some kind of I almost think probably glossy might be the best, because that's probably going to be the most precise. And, I just happen to not have any glossy, so I use luster, which is pretty good, I think, but use some good paper is my point here. Okay, so next one there, make notes and labels on prints. Everything that you do, actually, I would suggest, yeah, make a good system of labels on your alignment sheets that print out as I showed you on mine. But use whatever system works for you. But I would definitely make good labels on those, and make good notes on your printouts that you're whatever test image you're using. Yeah, make good notes on those, and that way you have a good record of everything you did and how you stepped through this, and that way you can go back and look at these things. So work out your own system there, and definitely more notes are better. So it's always helpful. And the last one there, beware the rabbit hole. This is a rabbit hole that you can go down. And I would say you should be careful, because this can drive you crazy, as it did me for a little while here, right? I spent quite a bit of time screwing around with this, and I literally probably made 20 printouts of that black and white image looking at this problem and doing these alignments. And so this is a rabbit hole you can go down. I had a Epson printer in the past, an Epson pigment ink printer, which is a really high-end printer also. And I had some banding problems on that. So, it's probably, if you're having this problem, it's probably not unique to this printer. Just do know that. Yeah, there are workarounds for this, by the way. You can do things like add grain in Photoshop to the areas that are going to be, more susceptible to this problem, like skies, blue skies, or black and white images like this. And I can tell you that professional printers know these tricks, because they see these banding problems. And yeah, just going into Photoshop and adding some very, very fine grain in a sky like this will alleviate this problem, And I did that myself on this very image, where I added some grain, and sure enough, the banding disappears. So there are workarounds, but you don't want banding, and you'll want to try this. If you're having this problem with this printer, this is one thing you'll probably want to try. There are many other things that can cause problems, and you can do some searches, and there are other solutions that people have found. But obviously, this printhead alignment matters. As I showed you, it made a big difference right away after the first time I did it. I saw a pretty big improvement, and so it obviously matters. Okay, so probably enough said. And yeah, I hope this is helpful. If you've got this printer, hopefully you're not running into this problem. But if you do, this is all good stuff to know. So, all right. Hope it's been helpful, and enjoy your day.